Hi, my name is Jonni McCoy, and I'm the founder and author of MiserlyMoms.com. And my husband and I were dinks, double income, no kids for 5 years. And we both had great paying jobs in the very expensive San Francisco Bay Area. And I had a wonderful job at Apple Computer, which I love dearly. And then we had our first child. And I wanted to continue to work. I loved my job, but the cost and reality of me quitting was also something that we had to factor in. So I thought I could have it all and work a job share program, work part-time, be a part-time mom, be able to enjoy both worlds, because that's pretty much what I had been raised to believe. I had been given that message that you could have it all. So I tried that for a couple of years, and we had a nanny, so we had great care for our son. And then I continued to feel like God was pressing on me to focus more on being a mom as my new career. But I thought, you know what, God, you haven't looked at my budget. You obviously don't know all the facts. And so I continued to work part-time and tried to be the best mom I could the other part of the time. So that pressing from God continued on for quite a while until I had to pretty much cry uncle and say, I have to quit. So this was even doubly hard because I made slightly more than half of our joint income. And we had already reduced a lot of our spending. We lived in a tiny townhouse. We drove 2 used cars that we owned fully. We didn't have any other expenses. So we were pretty bare bones. It was just a very expensive, Bay Area that we lived in. But I felt like I needed to quit, so we did. And my husband was like, well, that's not gonna work, so we're gonna have to move. We're gonna have to move way out into the farmland where the houses are cheaper, and he'd have to commute, a couple of hours each way. And I said, I don't really wanna move out there. It kind of smells like cows, so let me figure this out. And he said, well, I'll give you 4 months to figure it out, and then we'll move. So the bar had been set, and I like a good challenge, so I dug in and figured out how we could live on half, a little less than half of what we had before, and I had 4 months to do it. By the end of the 4 months, I had completed a great deal of research, interviewed lots of moms who'd stayed at home, and been able to cut the budget in half and not dive into savings by the end of 4 months. So we stayed in that house for 9 more years on half of what we did before. And during those 4 months of intensive research, I kept a notebook and I wrote down every single little way I found to save money in every area, not just food, but every area of the household. And that notebook, everyone started borrowing after they realized we did it and we were still healthy, we were still happy, and we didn't dress terrible. So I took that notebook and started copying it off, and eventually my husband said, why don't you put it in a book? And I said, nobody's gonna read that book. But I took his advice and did it. And that book is what the first book I wrote is called Miserly Moms. That is actually my notebook. And that book has now had about 200,000 copies in print. So those are the tried and true tips that our family lived out and figured out how to live on half. In the process of learning how to save money and cutting things back, we took a look at our budget and we divided it into 2 areas. The part of the budget that was fixed and unmovable, and the part of the budget that was movable, things that we could change. And the largest item in the things that most people can change is food. It's one of the largest budget items that people can move. So we took a look at food and we said, well, how can we cut this down, way down? Because we needed several $100s to cover those things that were fixed that we couldn't change. So we started, dividing up our food budget, taking a look at what we had, what we were spending our money on. I came up with 11 key things that helped us cut our food budget in half. And those became what were guidelines for me. They were sort of like a 12-step program. So they're called the 11 Miserly Guidelines, and if you follow them like a 12-step program, you too can cut your groceries in half. So my favorite 11 points are: don't confuse frugality with depriving yourself, remove little wasters of your money, keep track of food prices, don't buy everything at the same store, buy in bulk whenever possible, make your own whenever possible, eliminate convenience foods, cut back on meats, waste nothing, have a soup and bread or baked potato night, and cook several meals at once and freeze them if possible. So there's a whole lot of information there, and I spend half of the book, Miserly Moms, covering these 11 in great detail. But I have 4 that are my favorites that I would like to share in a little more detail with you. The first is never to confuse frugality with depriving yourself. And the reason it's my very first guideline is that attitude is really everything. If you're going to succeed at saving money, you have to be able to have a reason for doing it. You need to be committed to it, because there are going to be days where the last thing on earth you want to do is save money and be frugal. And it's very much like dieting. If you don't have a really good reason for dieting, most diets end in 72 hours. But if you have a really good reason for dieting, if you have a medical reason, you'll stick to it. So it's all about motivation. So find the reason why you're going to become frugal. Is it because someone just told you to? You won't last 72 hours. If it's because you have a goal, like mine was, which was to stay home, or maybe you want to pay off your mortgage, or maybe you want to be able to raise up enough money for a down payment on a house. Whatever your reason is, make sure it's really clear and get some kind of visual way of reminding yourself what it is. Mine was a picture. I put a picture of my son everywhere I was. I put it in my car on the rearview mirror. I put it on the kitchen counter. I put it everywhere so that I reminded myself in those times when I was feeling like, oh, let's just go to the mall and, blow a wad, or let's just go out to dinner and, spend half of our grocery money in one meal. I had a reason, a visual reason to help me. So think about why you're doing it, and then it will no longer be depriving yourself. It will be reaching a goal. The second thing that helped me the most was taking a look at our budget. And not just your budget, but then go take a look at how you spent that month. Go back through your checkbook, go keep every receipt for a month, and lay it all out and put it in categories. How much of it was entertainment, how much of it was food, how much was it utilities, how much was it household expenses, and then get a real, true, honest-to-goodness idea of where your money goes. Because where it goes and where you think it goes are sometimes very different stories. I mean, how often have you come to the end of the month and said, how in the world do I have no money? Where did it all go? So you really need to do this exercise for 30 days. Once you know where it is, then you can say, oh my gosh, I had no idea we spent, that much on, eating out, or that much on fast food. My husband, when we were first married, we had no idea he had quite the addiction to bookstores. He loves books. He's just reads and reads and reads. We had no idea how much money we were spending on books every month. So I introduced him to the interlibrary loan system, and we could do it for free. So we wouldn't know where the problems were the holes in the lunch bag, until you really do an analysis. My third and most favorite is to never buy everything at one grocery store. No one store on the planet has the lowest prices for everything. There's a lot of different sales happening at different stores. Some of them are going to feature certain items on sale every week, and those things are the things you want at that store. Then you want to go get the other items that are being featured at another store, and you want to break up your shopping that way. If you just drop into one store, you will never get everything on sale. And there's another trick to not buying everything at one store. You don't want to be going to like a warehouse store. That's one place where some things are cheaper, but other things are actually more expensive than you can get elsewhere. And there's, again, a whole chapter on the warehouse store in Miserly Moms, because that's a whole art in learning how to shop at a warehouse store. My last point that I really wanted to go into detail was to eliminate convenience foods. Convenience foods are anything that someone has chopped or washed or pre-cooked or pre-boxed for you in any way. And those are going to cost anywhere from 4 to 6 times more than you doing it yourself. So there are some things that I do buy as a convenience food. I don't want you to think I'm a complete fanatic. I mean, there was a time when I thought I could make everything cheaper and better, and I tried marshmallows and potato chips and all these other things, and they were a waste of time, and it was a whole lot cheaper to buy a bag of marshmallows for 99 cents. But most convenience foods do cost you a great deal more. So take a look, compare making it yourself with the higher price of buying it when someone else has prepared it for you.